Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm trying something a little new this time, so I hope I don't mess this thing up too badly. I'm pretty sure you can't see my head. I think I have it set up to here, but I wanted to have my palette visible a little bit. So I've got this iographer. It's kind of like an iPad stand for my iPad Pro, and it's on my tripod, so I want to see if that works. It looked kind of cool in all the videos I saw. So I want to see if, that'll help steady it out. And I'm taking pictures with my iPad Pro instead of my phone. So I'm hoping the quality is a little better. So let's get started with going over everything we're doing. A lot of my videos lately have been voiceovers. And yes, that's my crazy parrot 2 rooms over. His voice carries. This one I wanted to kind of take it a little slower and do it live. So I have an 11 by 14 1/8 inch thick ampersand gesso board, and this is my favorite support paint on. I love the stretch linen from Centurion, but this is really my favorite. It's a little smoother than the linen, believe it or not. It's nice and rigid. It doesn't have the deep cradle. This is, like I said, the 1/8 inch. And when I'm finding out a lot of my shows this year, people are buying these from me, and I'm doing these all the way from 5 by 7 up to 11 by 14. Actually, no, I've got 2 12 by 16s left, but 11 by 14 is going to be the biggest I do in this 1/8 inch. What they do is, I got these little Velcro squares that I put in the back. And people are just taking them and putting them right on their wall when they get home. Some are still putting them in a photo frame, but most of them are putting on the wall. And they get that real clean look. Nice and smooth on the wall, and everything's kind of cool. So that's the support we're using. So, let me get my brush here. Okay, the brush cleaner we're going to use, and this is what I've been using for a little over a year now, and it's called Bristle Magic, and I don't know who makes it, but I do have this. So Bristle Magic paintbrush, oil and acrylic cleaner and reconditioner. See, bristolmagic.com, so it's made by them. Biodegradable, non-toxic, non-flammable, no fumes. And the best part is, it cleans the brushes really, really well. The fact that you can use that and have a green studio is just outstanding. You don't have to worry about any kind of fumes for, like, I got a small bird. Children, you don't have to worry about it. Next thing I got, my old nasty jar, my medium. And this is the Walnut Alkyd medium. And that is by M. Graham. They basically make their stuff out of walnut oil, including their oil paint and watercolors. I think they have acrylic as well. Anyways, they use that as the binder, so you can technically clean your brushes with walnut oil if you're using the M. Graham paints. But I like their medium. Again, non-toxic, non-flammable, biodegradable, perfectly harmless. And it goes real well with the paints that I use. And I use the Griffin Alkyd oil paint. It's fast drying. The thickness that I do, the impasto that I do, it's dried at a touch 24 to 36 hours. 4 to 6 weeks I can do a final varnish. It dries that quickly. But they're full pigment loads made by Winsor Newton. It's artist grade, it's light fast, it's a great paint. It's been around since, I believe, the early mid-70s. And it's the only paint I use. And now we have our limited palette. And like I said, they're all the Griffin Alkyds from Winsor Newton. And these are the only colors that I use now, whether it's plein air, studio, it doesn't matter. So I've got the titanium white. I've got the, is it Winsor or regular lemon yellow? It's Winsor Lemon. That's permanent alizarin crimson. That's French ultramarine, permanent sap green, and Paynes Gray. Now, the only color that may change is the permanent sap green. I love the olive green that Winsor Newton has in the Griffin Alkyd line, and I may substitute the olive for the sap. I just wanted a dark green because this is the only tube green I use. These are the only 2 colors I use. I'll mix everything from here. And I just want the dark green, and I'll mix it with the Paynes Gray, which is actually a very, very dark blue. So I get my real darks in before I can highlight them. So it doesn't matter which one you use. I've used them both. I like them both a lot. I'm thinking about leaning towards the olive, but I'm going to try it one more time. Okay, so let's get on with the painting. Paper towels are a must. Got my brushes here. We may try out 2 new brushes that I got from Hobby Lobby earlier today. These are to blend like sky in different places if I want a real smooth gradation and I don't want it really rough. This is a goat hair and this is a ponytail hair. And I usually use a hake brush. And the reason why I got these is the hake, I get really tired of having to take the tweezers and plucking the hairs out. Now in landscapes, it'll go well in some areas. If you have a lot of foliage on your trees and stuff, it'll actually look like it belongs there. But in a sky or in your water, it kind of gets annoying. So I'm gonna see if these do any less shedding and see how they blend stuff out. Okay, so what we're gonna do, take a little bit of our medium and a little bit of our Sap Green and French Ultramarine. And we're just gonna draw a horizon line. And if you notice, I'm taking painstaking care to make it straight. Yes, I'm kidding. One of the things that I'm doing a lot of lately, even with my live demos, is I'm doing a lot less precision work and a lot more just creative, free flow, let's see what happens type of work. Now, a lot of times I've been using Sap Green and Paynes Gray to do this part. For some reason, I just wanted to use French Ultramarine and the Sap Green. Okay, so let's start out today. Some trees over here. And let's see, add a little Paynes Gray to it now, maybe a little hill here. Not quite a mountain, just a little hill. And when you're in this stage here, this is your fun stage. Actually, the whole painting process is fun. What's nice about here is there is no right and wrong. You're just putting color down and seeing what you like. You know, you're going to pick out shapes that you like. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. This is almost like your sketchbook. You're just going to doodle right here, and when you find something you like, you're going to refine it and kind of work around it. And if you notice by seeing any of my videos or paintings on my website and stuff, I love water, so you know water's going to be here somewhere. And I got this green in here, which in a lot of cases when there's a lot of, you know, lush trees and stuff, water has a green tint to it. Water reflects the color around it. So what I'm thinking about doing, we got to balance everything out. So I've got these trees here, and I think I'm going to make this like a little forest area. This isn't going to be a huge mountain, it's going to be a little one. Almost like a foothill. Oh no, you have a foothill, you need a mountain and foothill with. So maybe this be like a little bluff. I'm in Illinois, about 30 miles west of Chicago. So in Wisconsin, our neighbors to the north, they have bluffs in certain places like Devil's Lake and stuff. So they're just like pint-sized mountains. They're the Midwest version of mountains. We don't have the real stuff like they do in a little bit in the southeast with the Blue Ridge, and then out west with the Rockies and Tetons and all that. So these are the Midwestern poor man's mountains. Okay, so what I'm going to do, a little more Paynes Gray, and I'm just going to put a waterfall right here. Probably won't be that big, but I'm going to just put that waterfall right in. Okay, now I went away from the green and everything else on this only because we're going to have to put the waterfall, so we have to put the water going over it, and that's going to be with white. So you want this, you know, reasonably dark. You can't see dark without light and vice versa. And painting is a whole lot of contrast and illusion with perspective. And you just kind of go with it. So I'm not going to have it all the way in the back, but I'm going to have it all the way in the front. And as you can tell, I don't really care what I'm doing here. I'm getting shapes in. It's a little bit bigger. And this is just, like I said, you can see there's no pencil marks, no graphite, no nothing. Kind of just going as I just out of the way. Just for a moment, I'll bring it back so you can see the palette. There we go. I'll bring it back so you can see the palette. My paper just wouldn't go low enough with that way I was doing it. Okay, so this looks really bad, which is really good. So, wipe off my brush. You can't, I don't know if you can see it from here or not. Let me see. No, not really. Barely see it. Over here is where I got my brushes lying. Here's the brushes I haven't used yet. Here's the brush I haven't cleaned yet. It's a good idea to figure out a way to keep them clean. Some will put them opposite ways on your palette and table, wherever you're at. Just figure something out that makes it easy for you. Okay, I'm gonna get my sky in now. I've got an idea of where I want everything. A little bit of a forest here, little bluffs, a little bit of a waterfall, and I got my river. Now, I mentioned balance earlier. So, here's the balance. Here's the horizon line, okay? Horizon line is the eyesight for the viewer. So, in my case, this is where I have it for me. When you're an artist, you can put the horizon wherever you want, but that's where I decided to do it. It's not dead center, it's slightly up, but not by much. It's close to center. That was just, it happened. It wasn't pre-planned. So, I got my little bluffs here, okay? Main element. I got a forest area I'm going to develop here, main element. So they're going to balance, okay? Waterfall here, another main element. The wide mouth of the river, another main element, and that's going to balance. For perspective cases, to see the water correctly, you have to start narrower, and then as the water goes away, it gradually gets bigger. So that's how we have our balance in our composition now. And I didn't put the waterfall directly under the trees because I wanted to break it up a little bit. The widest part is the widest part. Narrow, narrow. That didn't work out as great as I wanted, but we're going to fill this in with some ledges or some cliffs or something here, and that's going to balance it real nice. So just a little bit of medium now. Titanium white, French ultramarine. Let's start putting the sky in. Now, if you do decide to give these ampersand panels a try, I do recommend, because when you're using oil paints, obviously, even with the Alkyd that I'm using, it's going to stay wet a lot longer than you're going to be painting that composition usually. So, with it so narrow, and you put it in an easel, let's say down here, it's not going to work so well when you have to get underneath, and it's just going to be a pain. So that's why I use the Velcro, and then a bigger piece of wood. That way, when I want to get to the bottom or to the top, it's already secured to a surface, and then you just go right to the edges, no big deal. So if you do decide to use these panels, it's a little trick of the trade for you. Now, I don't have to, because of this paint and my brushes being cleaned here and there, I don't need to constantly put on the medium. Once I have it in the bristles a little bit, I can pretty much finish an element that I'm using with it. And believe it or not, you still want to get the sides a little bit. Okay. Now, as you notice, I got a little bit of my green mixed up in here. Don't matter. I've seen a green sky before. Okay, I got to get my tweezers. I don't know where this. There we go. I don't know where that hair came from. This brush is usually pretty good. There we go. It's funny too, because like I told you earlier with the hairs that come out, I don't mind if they come out where the foliage is, grasses, stuff like that, but they always seem to come out where it's, you know, smooth. And that gets annoying. Okay, now I'm gonna continue taking this white down. Normally, for perspective 101, 01, been a while since I've been in college, so I get my 101s mixed up. The darker the sky is at the top and the lighter towards the horizon line. Right now, most of it's light. It won't be that way. I got a nice coat of my titanium white, a little bit of French ultramarine, and then I'm going to enhance it. Now, I'm not going to go all the way here, because this will be a forest. I went to the top just because I wasn't sure exactly where it was going to go. This will be covered in with a very pale part of green, so you can kind of see in the back, or it may be a dark green with the lighter on the more towards the foreground. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but I left that alone with the sky color. Okay, now I am going to a little bit of alizarin crimson, just a hair. It's a very powerful color. And my French ultramarine. I'm going to put some color in the sky. Now, you can do this right away, You can do it in the beginning, you can do it at the end, you can do it whenever you want. I just kind of do it whenever. It doesn't really matter to me. The sky is going to be blended anyways. And like I said, there is no right or wrong. You just want to make sure you have enough paint on your surface in order to cover it up really well and get that nice, lush, deep oil paint colors, which is why so many people gravitate towards oil paint. Okay, now, I was going to use my new goat here for the blending, but these lines I put in are kind of harsh, so I'm just going to use another bristle brush, a very clean, very dry, I haven't used it yet, 2-inch bristle brush. And I'm just going to get a lot of these harsh brush marks down. I like having brush marks show up in my work, but in certain areas I like it a little smoother, the sky being one of them. And then one more thing, if you notice here, I didn't go right to the edge. My little bluff here, little foothill, whatever you want to call it, I just sketched out. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than what it is. And I'm going to blend it into the sky going this way, which is a lot easier than taking the sky into it. Because you're going to have to really get really precise. And as you notice by my painting style, I'm not precise. Okay, so doggone it. Some more of those down hairs. There it is. Wow, my tweezer just fell all over. Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna leave these out. Okay, very light. Now, it's hard when you're not here. When I do live demos at like my art shows and stuff, I'll take somebody's wrist or arm and I'll just show how lightly I'm touching. Okay, when you have oil paint especially, when you are blending, you want a very light touch. When you're mixing, a lot of people do what they call optical mixing, which is mixing their colors on the palette, on the painting. You go harder. I just want to push the paint around a little bit, give it a really nice blend. I don't want to mix the paint. So it's really light. You can barely hear me caressing the surface. Okay, now while I get this brush going, and by the way, I know I've repeated this in every painting video I've done, make sure you have a lot of these on hand. A full roll of paper towels lasts me approximately 4 paintings. So make sure you get the real cheap stuff at the dollar store. Okay, let's put some clouds in. Now, this is where it all comes to you, as far as what you like, what you don't like, anything. Excuse me. I know I'm going to put trees in here, but I like this red. So I'm going to go up to it with this forest and into it just a little bit. And then I'm going to have smaller, fainter forest down here. I don't want to get rid of this red. Okay? I like that. Now, this dark blue here I like a lot, and this dark blue. So I'm going to put my clouds underneath and on top. Okay? You can position them any way you want. Some people just go willy-nilly. I do that a lot. But the way this kind of blended out, I want to enhance it. Okay. So I'm just taking a fan brush and I'm leaving the blues that I like, and I'm making it a little, this will be fainter the closer it gets to the ground. Put this up just a touch. Okay. So this fan brush just has titanium white on it at the moment. So I'm not even gonna, if you notice, I've used 3 different brushes already, but I have not used the brush cleaner yet. Some people use it after everything they do, so they have a perfectly clean brush. If you're into portraits, pet portraits, human portraits like that, definitely do that. You're into landscapes. I've got a total of 5 tube colors plus white. It's all going to be mixed together anyway, so it doesn't really matter. When I get a really nasty brush, then I'll do it, or if there's some place that's got to be clean, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I wash my brushes at the end. Okay, now we're going to do the clouds just like we blended the sky. The Okay, when we blended the sky, we just wanted the brush strokes out. So we were moving the paint to soften them, to smooth them out. Now we've got the harsh stuff here, which is what I don't like these, because clouds don't look like that. I want them softer. So we're gonna take the brush that I haven't cleaned, that same 2-inch that we used, and I'm gonna gently move the paint around, soften it up. I may go a little harder underneath and blend it into the sky itself, and then the top part I'll fluff out, and I'll show you what I mean. Real light. Okay. You can even see it forming already. Okay, now you can see all the brush marks. I don't know if you can in the video, but I can see all the brush marks going that way. So now I'll just... And you do this a little bit until you get that look you want. And you use different parts of the brush. That I want a little more, a little softer on the bottom. And a little harsher. A little more of a hard edge on the top. That gives it a real nice, realistic feel to it. There we go. And do me a big favor too. This is the first time I've done a video with the iographer and showing the palette and everything else together. If my arm or I'm in the way too much, or if you just couldn't see it, please just drop me a comment and let me know what the deal is. Because I want these videos to be entertaining, and I also want them to be, you know, a nice instructional piece. So if somebody's learning how to paint, they could actually take some stuff by it. Because I'm a huge, huge believer in YouTube videos for learning how to do stuff. Quick story on 2 things. One is when I started learning how to paint 20 years ago, I would doodle when I was in grade school and high school. And my teachers always were upset because I would doodle and stuff like that, but never anything serious with art. But I would doodle a lot, and then when I finally got into art, much later in life than I would have liked, looking back at it now, I went to the College of DuPage, and I went for advertising and illustration, actually. Didn't even go for fine art. And I got into fine art because of it. And I enjoyed it, I loved it. I didn't even graduate on time. It took like 4 or 5 years to get a 2-year. And I never actually took the specific course for my 2-year with the general education requirements. I just took all art classes. Okay, so that gave me a little bit of a foundation, okay? Not a lot, but a little bit. It at least got me to where I was confident enough with a brush and a pencil in my hand to do whatever. Okay. Everything else I learned was from people I meet and YouTube. YouTube has got a huge amount of talented artists in all different mediums. So if you want to learn how to oil paint, you can learn something from watercolor and video, or an acrylic video, or a gouache video. Certain techniques are going to be the same. Certain aspects, composition, color theory, all that's the same. So if you really want to learn how to paint, regardless of the medium, but in this case oils, because that's what I do, leave the comments down. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and I'll do my best to try to cater it to, you know, what everybody is liking, even with the subjects that I paint, to try to help you understand. Because the more you paint, the more you look, the more you go through videos and stuff, the quicker you're going to get to where you want to be. You know, you may want to do it just as a hobby to relax after work. You may want to take it as a full-time artist. It's entirely up to you. So let me know. Don't be afraid to put that down, and let me know what you think. Okay, so I've got my sky done. Enough of the ramble. Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more thing. I hope you're still listening and watching the video and you didn't turn it off yet. This one is actually has nothing to do with art, but it has to do with YouTube to get an idea. I think it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago in July. July will be 5 years. So it's June right now in 2023. So it's 5 years ago, I believe, I had spine surgery. And I had what they call a fistula, which meant a vein, instead of taking blood from my spine out, it was actually putting blood back into my spine, and it was overloading the spine. So it wasn't a matter if that vein was going to rupture, it's a matter of when, according to my neurosurgeon and the doctors, and they found it by accident. And then I'd be paralyzed from wherever that fistula is down. Okay, I'm a little nervous, okay? I'm 52 years old, in decent health, getting along, having a job and everything else, and all of a sudden I find out I may be, stuck in a wheelchair if we don't take care of this. Just for the heck of it, I went on YouTube and I looked it up. And if I'm the son of a gun, they had an operation showing how they removed the bone, how they clipped the vein, and then rerouted it. I watched that whole video of these surgeons. I forget which hospital it was. I felt at ease. 2 weeks later, I went in to get the surgery because that's about what it was for scheduling. It was about 2 weeks out for that particular one, and everything was great. So use the resource. I'm not an affiliate of YouTube in any way, shape, or form. Maybe one day I will be a partner on them, but YouTube has a lot of good resources. Okay, so one of the things I want to mention, if you haven't guessed already, is if you noticed, I'm starting to use thicker paint when I'm doing stuff. When I did the clouds, when I did the sky, when I put my initial stuff in here, this is almost watercolor look, more medium than paint. Now I'm doing a lot more of the paint. And you can see right here when I do this bluff. And I'm not even using a medium right now, just using the thick paint. And right now I'm using Paynes Gray, Alizarin Crimson, and Sap Green. My 3 darkest colors. And I'm just putting in a nice little bluff here. There we go. Because it's not, like a rocky mountain where you got a lot of grays and stuff in there, that little green hint is good. Okay, now, when you have mountains, rocks, anything, trees, you're going to have a side that's going to be highlighted and brighter and a side that's going to be in shadow, obviously darker. So you want to just establish where your light comes from and stick with it throughout. So if you're going to have, I'm going to have my light coming from the top left, so my highlight's going to be this side, shadow's going to be over here. On the trees, it'll be on the left, shadow on the right, and so on. So if I put rocks down here, which is a possibility, I want to make sure I put the left side of the rocks as the highlight side to make sure everything stays uniform. So just keep that in mind. Wherever you establish your light source, make sure that stays that way throughout the whole painting. Otherwise, it'll look odd. Okay. There we go. Now, next thing is, I'm going to put my highlights down like this. This is just my own preference. I learned a long time ago. I'm making all my strokes here go in the opposite direction. And the reason I do that, again, this is just my own personal preference. The highlight's going to come this way, and then terrain is going to go this way. I'm going to put some blue in it for a nice shadow color. And it gives it that molded, three-dimensional look. To me, it looks better that way. Everybody has their own little method of doing stuff. That's how I do it. Okay, so speaking of which, and I still haven't washed the brush yet. So now I'm going to take a very clean fan brush. Now, I have slight subject change. Brushes. Try not to use every brush you have. Most artists, whether they're beginning or professional, have 8,000 brushes. I'm no exception. I don't like to use every one of them because you got to clean them at the end. So I have a limited palette and paint, which is easier to do than limited brush, depending on what you're painting. Try not to use every brush, only because it'll save you some work later. It has nothing to do with the quality of your work. It's just how much you can clean up. And it doesn't matter what medium you have. Okay, so the highlight's going to be nice because I've got 3 different colors in there. And I'm just going to use titanium white. I'm just going to put a little bit in. These are just little flicks. See how that dark and light green, almost a little olive is in there? You don't want to take it into the sky now. I already put it up to the sky. So you want to keep it, we go into it just a hair, not too much. You want to be real careful not to dirty your sky. these, you don't have to worry about as much because there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to cover them. What I like to do is put the highlights in, because at this stage, I don't know exactly what's going to be covered and what's not. If the highlight's already in, then you're in good shape. Okay, so I got the initial highlight on. And I'm just going to put in a little bit more. And this one you can do, you know, kind of anything. There we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is all my brushes that I put out for this session have been used. Okay, so now I'm going to, I can almost leave it like that, but I'm not going to, because that mixture I have is dark enough where that would work. Okay, I'm just going to use a little bit of blue. French Ultramarine, no medium. Same direction out, a little bit more. And you're not really pressing hard, just enough again to move the paint. I hope you can see it on the video, but I doubt it. But you can see the blue tint to give it that nice shadow color. And like I said, with that green, Paynes Gray, and French Ultramarine blue, it gave it a dark enough shadow to it where it really looked good. So I'm not really worried about this part of it. It came out better than I expected. A little bit underneath. And this actually, I may put a river on the top as a feeder, or it may just come out of there and you'll have your imagination, the viewer's imagination will determine where that water's coming from. You know it's coming from somewhere because it's fallen, but you don't know exactly where. So we'll go with that. Okay. So I'm gonna go a little bit more highlight. Normally what I end up doing when I do my highlights on hills, mountains, and stuff like that, I'll put my initial highlight in to see where I want that to be. Okay, I like it. Almost like my preliminary sketch. Well, I gotta learn to speak today. Then I'll put in the shadow, then I'll brighten it up a little bit with the highlight. We're good to go. And this time I'm gonna tap a little bit, give it a little bit of rougher texture, as opposed to making it real smooth. So the first time, I brushed it, now I'm tapping it. Very lightly though. Okay, now, last thing I want to do is try out my new pony hair brush. Okay. Now, again, I hope you can, let me check this out. Okay, you can see it a little bit. If you kind of concentrate or whatever right here, there's a lot of brush strokes, okay? They don't look bad for a mountain, but I want to smooth them out just a little bit. So I'm going to take this little pony hair brush, hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, there is no shedding, which is the reason I bought it to try it, but I want to blend it out a little smoother. So I'm barely going to be touching. Oh, that's working nice. Ooh, I like this. Ooh, that blended nice. Okay, definitely a winner. This was like $3 at Hobby Lobby. It's a 1/2 inch oval mop pony hair brush. And make sure you get it when the Master's Touch stuff is 40% off like I did today. I saw them last week, but it wasn't on sale until this week, so I bought them today. Okay, that's pretty good. Now this I may need later, so I am gonna wash it. when you're blending out like this and you're doing stuff, sometimes you want to keep a real clean brush. And this little brush is gonna dry good. And then I make sure I really squeeze it out. I can almost use it immediately. Yeah, that's pretty dry. Very little on my hands. Okay, so I'm cool with that. Next thing I want to put in is here. Now, we were talking a long time ago. I'm gonna go up to this red in a little bit. I'm gonna use the 2-inch brush. And I'm gonna use sideways taps without any medium. And I'm gonna use Paynes Gray and Sap Green and Ultramarine blue. Basically the same as the mountain. Okay. Now, one thing about a limited palette, when you're first beginning, it makes it a little difficult because you got to learn how to mix colors a little bit. In landscapes, it's not too bad because it's hard. You're not looking for specifics like you would be with like a portrait. But always remember, you need your dark in order to get to light. So highlights mean nothing. If that base of that hill wasn't so dark, you wouldn't see that highlight. So just tapping. Now the next thing you want to do is make sure, yeah, I want to get rid of that red. Now, you notice how they're not all the same height? That's intentional. You don't want them all the same height. You don't want everything just rigid, straight lines. All that stuff is bad in most areas of landscapes. Where I do use it is to establish this horizon line and the far bank of, let's say, a river. The far bank of a river is going to be straight a certain amount, and then the close to the bank is not going to be. And that's where you have to have the split for the perspective to be correct. So now we'll do, I'm going to leave this dirty. I'm not even going to wipe it off yet. Now what I'm going to do is take a 1-inch brush. I'm going to use those same colors. Sorry about that phone. My wife is a sweetheart and she took it out for me. Now, I'm going to give these. Okay, now this one. Crazy birds flying around. So if you hear that wind going by the microphone, his name is Raphael. I named it after my favorite artist, Raphael Sanzio. And my bird, well, my wife's bird, is a nut. He's a nut. He's beautiful, but he's a nut. Okay, so I got the thick paint here. I'm gonna thin it out just a little bit more. I want these to be a little darker than this because I want this to show like it's further back. So, atmospheric perspective. Any element that's further away has less detail and less vibrancy. So the darker the colors are, the more forward. The more detail, the more forward. So I want this to be behind my little bluff and these. So I take this now. Wipe it off again. No paint, by the way. See how that's getting thinner and going back? Okay, so the next thing I do, reestablish the hill. There we go. What I should not have done was taken that all the way to the bottom. But I was listening to the stupid phone in my bird and wasn't thinking. There's that highlight. Okay, so I'm going to reestablish these trees here, and I'm going to go over just a little bit so we can show them in the back, overlap. And the darker we make these, the further back that'll look. Ooh, that came out nice. There we go. Oh, that came out real good. I just got to reestablish that highlight right here. Okay. I'm not going to put a lot of highlight on these. I like that the way that is. Just going to put a little bit of yellow on it. Okay, now, rule number 102, 1,865. Actually, there are no rules in painting. You do what you like. But always allow for the, oh, wow, that looks good. Or, oh, wow, that's terrible. Because that will inevitably happen regardless of how often you've painted, how many paintings. It doesn't matter. I envisioned having my little forest right here over. This just being a couple little fluffy deciduous trees, these being like fir trees, these being pushed back. Okay, I got partially right. I got some pushback that you can see. But I like the way these look so much that I'm gonna put just a little bit of yellow as a highlight here and there, not much. I love the way I have the light green with the dark greens. Wow. There is part of me that just does not want to mess with that. Okay, I'm going to do something else for right now. I am going to come back to that later because that is intriguing me. I love the way that looks right now. I don't know if I want to mess with a highlight on it. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a feeder here. It's too much paint. So when you do get to the point where you got too much paint, take a palette knife, scrape off what you don't want. Okay. Then take a reasonably dry brush, establish one more time what you want. Now, I'm probably going to have rocks or something here that's going to block a lot of that. Not this, I love that, but maybe this part here where the feeder is for my river. So you don't have to worry about it. But I wanted to have just a little bit of a feeder. Okay, and this is probably going to be a brown ledge or something. I'm not sure yet. I might make that brown ledge right there too. So let's go from there. Okay. Let's do brown. So as you notice, I don't have a brown. So what am I going to do? Mix your three primaries together. So that would be yellow. In this case, Winsor Lemon, Alizarin Crimson, French Ultramarine Blue. It gives you a nice little brown, and then for good kicks, I'll put in some Paynes Gray. Okay, look at how beautiful that brown is. And just adding the yellow and the alizarin crimson, as opposed to the other mixture that I use for the mountain, it's very distinct. Do not be afraid to try new things. Do not be afraid to experiment, and please do not ever be afraid to fail. If you're afraid to fail, you will fail because you won't try things. And if you don't try things, you don't learn things, and if you don't learn things, you fail. I learned that the hard way for a lot of years. What if I mess it up? What if I this? What if I that? And it stunted my growth for years. Please learn from my mistakes. Never, ever be afraid to fail. Failing is where you learn the most. And if you look at it, It's not actually failing if you learn from it. It's a very inexpensive lesson, and it takes many years of learning off the shelf. You'll learn a lot quicker. Okay, do that here too. These rich darks are just really appealing to me. I really hope they show up on the video good, because these rich darks are absolutely gorgeous today. Now, if you notice, I'm getting real careful around the waterfall. I want to get it right up to it, but the waterfall probably won't be this big. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to put the feeder river in and then drop it, and then I'm going to see where I'm at. And that'll determine how wide I want that thing. It'll be close to that, but it may not be that. I haven't decided yet. Now, one of the things that you want to understand, make it up as you go along is the essence of creativity. A lot of artists swear by having a plan, and they do a bunch of thumbnail sketches, and they do all kinds of preliminary work. God bless them. I do not have those patience. I like to pick up a brush and paint what's in front of me, kind of, but get the idea, like in plein air work, or like I'm doing with you, and just kind of, oh wow, as it goes. I love the pure creativity of just not having a clue, picking up a brush with your same color palette, and just seeing what happens. The people that do it with the thumbnails and stuff are wired differently than me. That doesn't make their way wrong and my way right. For them, that's best. For me, I like making it up as I go along. Okay, now I'm going to have a little bit of blue, put some titanium white, reestablish my river, and then put the whole thing in. There we go. And if you noticed, I'm not using flat brush, I'm using this, just to get it in. No specific reason. It thins it out a little bit, it doesn't cover as good, which right now I don't want perfect coverage on my river. I just want different colors. And I'm going a little bit darker because the surroundings are so much darker. It's not going to be a real light river, it's going to be a much darker one. Okay, lesson 1,000,003. Water needs to be flat and horizontal. So, you don't want it like this. I just scrub that in just to get it in. So now I've got everything covered, I'll use the brush normally. And I want to get it pretty close. Just a little bit more medium. Sometimes if it's not flowing right, I don't put a medium on my brush unless I need it. And when the only time I need it is when it's not flowing. Try not to get in the habit of using the medium just to use it. Okay, so you want these horizontal strokes. They don't have to be perfect, okay? Because you're going to have a lot of other stuff in it. But you want them close. Okay. Now, I'm going to use a little bit more of the dark. And this is just a combination of everything. A little bit more blue in this area. I don't even know how much of that I'm going to show, but we're getting to the time where we're going to be putting that in. Okay, we can only have this left. So, just for the hell of it, I'm getting rid of it. Get rid of the white as soon as you can. Life is good. And basically, I'm going to use Paynes Gray, Sap Green, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of Alizarin Crimson in a minute. And that's going to be my base for my land. And if you noticed, it's dark. And the reason I have it so dark, so when I put the highlights on, you can see them without a problem. Okay, now, okay, so This is a bunch of grass, little pasture, whatever the case may be. I got all kinds of brushstroke lines, everything else. When it's in the grass, that's cool. I don't need it smooth like the water or the sky. So what I'm gonna do, clean my brush with just a paper towel. So basically not clean it, wipe it off. Okay. So I'm gonna do something that you may or may not think looks, oh my God, what is he doing? Oh no, what is he doing? I like to establish a smooth line where my water and my land meet here. Not so much here because I'm gonna lighten that up. This is a cliff that'll be coming down that I'm gonna use a palette knife with and put the highlights on that way. But between the water and those cliffs, I'm gonna put a strip of grass. Here I'm not, they're gonna meet each other. So I got my brush not cleaned as far as my brush cleaner, but just all the big stuff off. And I'm just going to go horizontal again. See how they're blending into each other? Again, water is the color of its surroundings. A lot of green, a lot of brown, a lot of blues and stuff. And that's what you got in here. Now I'm gonna highlight this water because it's gonna be rough water because of the waterfall. And then I'm gonna have reeds coming up here. That will be the separator, how the viewer is gonna see where the water and the land meet. Right now, it can be anywhere, but that's not the way it's gonna stay. I want this just a little bit more this way. There we go. Okay. So, next thing I'm going to do, now we're going to clean our little fan. Towel. I've got two different things for wiping brushes. I use paper towels just to wipe the thick paint off. Then I got this from Blick. It's part of a bag of rags. Got like 5 or 6 rags in it or whatever. Found out they're really nice. They absorb the stuff good and they wash real good and they last. They're really strong. And they weren't that much money either, so I highly recommend bag of rags if you're doing any kind of painting regardless of the medium. Okay, so now we'll put in our feeder and our waterfall. We're going to use pure titanium white because it is going to mix a little bit with what we have. Now I'm not using the whole brush because the fan is a little bit rounded. This one isn't because it's used, so you use half of it. Okay, there's no feeder over here. I'll have all this locked with land and stuff. So now we got the feeder here. Now I'm going to make sure I have enough white on, and I'm going to bring it down. So the stroke is going to be starting about here, and then boom. There we go. There we go. Now, the closer to the waterfall, the rougher the water is. The further away, the smoother it is. I'm going to put all these in like it's all the same. And the reason is because I'm going to smooth it out with a brush in a minute. In some areas, I'm going to smooth out more than others. Now, I made a mistake. When I was getting into this, I got a little bit of yellow on it, and the yellow went in there. It's nature. I've seen waterfalls many times with, streaks of different colors in them. I am going to go over it one more time with more white, not because of the yellow, but I want this part to be down more. But you run into a situation like that, do not worry about it. Straight, there we go. Okay, so we got that done. Wipe off the excess paint and get out a bunch more paper towels. Like I said, one painting equals approximately a quarter roll of standard dollar store paper towels. Sometimes I'm a little more, sometimes a little less, but that area. Okay, so now I'll take my 2-inch brush that I've been using for everything. It's got all kinds of dark stuff on it, but I'm not gonna wash it. Just getting all the bulk off. I'm gonna barely touch this. I'm gonna do the same thing with the white caps as I did with the clouds. Just heavy enough pressure just to move the paint. So this I'm gonna leave alone because I want that rough because it's right by the falls. Now over here I want it a little softer, so I'm going a little heavier pressure. This just a little bit. There we go. Step back, and I kind of like it. Just a little bit more down here. I want a little bit more blue in it too. It's not going to be as churning as much when it's that far away from the falls. Now that blue by itself there obviously looks out of place, but we're going to blend together. Now I'm going to take the side. I'm just going to make my little flick marks. What I'm doing is I'm blending that with the color that's wet underneath it. Okay, now, basically, what I did is no different than the shadows I put over here. So now I'm going to wipe the brush off with the blue, go back into my straight white, and just hit the tops of it. Cleaning out the brush because I'm going to need it in a couple other areas. Okay. There we go. There we go. Like that a little bit better. Just want to put a little bit more blue over here. There we go. Okay, so, wow, the water didn't do as bad as I thought. Okay, next thing is, I want to establish now where that is. So the same mixture I've been using for all my darks, okay? French Ultramarine, Permanent Sap Green, Paynes Gray. All in the brush. I'm going to use my big 2-inch brush. I'm going to touch and flick up what reads. Now later, towards the end, we're going to put flowers on them. I love flowers and paintings. Now, because of perspective, you don't have to do this, but it does look a little bit better. See how our water was narrow here and then it gets wider? Well, shorter for our reeds here, and as they get down to the bottom, we're going to go a little taller. There we go. Okay. Well, we're coming along pretty nice now. So, I probably could wash this brush, but I'm not. I'll wait till later. I don't like washing brushes unless I have to. Habit I got into not all that long ago. I used to wash my brushes all the time. Not quite compulsive, but close. And I learned it just wasn't worth it. Okay, so next thing I want to do, I want to establish my grass here that I mentioned. Once I establish the grass there, then I'm going to do the highlights with the palette knife, and then I'll put grass on the top and little reed type things on the top. So. Yellow mixed with the green is a real nice look. You can tell by these colors that I'm using, this is a very nice deep rich paint. The beauty of it is it's not that expensive. You know, when you're talking about artist quality materials, you know, a 37 ml tube is like $6.81 for this stuff. My real big tube I showed you, the 200 ml titanium white, was $26. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go with that. And now I'm gonna take the old palette knife, got a bunch of these, and I'm just gonna go downward. And I'm just gonna establish highlights. Now here you don't have to worry about coming from the left or right. The way these are, you're gonna automatically with the palette knife see dark and light areas, and that's gonna give it a real nice definition. So now I gotta move this out of my way. Load the knife. Some flowers and trees and stuff go up a little bit, I think. Crazy bird. There we go. And I think I'll unthicken this just a little bit. It's a little thick for my taste. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to put in some yellow and green. I'm going to tap in. Now it's going to be bright. Same thing over here. Now the top. So the next thing I want to do is establish a little bit of this yellow to separate stuff. Just like we did the reeds, but smaller version, touching and lifting. You can hear me touching as I lift. At least I hope you can. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to put a couple of them that are just a little bit bigger. Just to move those hills back a little bit. Okay, I like that. So, the next thing I gotta do, I'll wash the brush. I don't know if I'm gonna need this one anymore. Small fan brush, I don't know if I have another use for it for this particular painting. Okay. What I am gonna do, I gotta raise the dark here just a hair, because the yellow got in the way. I need to put the yellow behind there. There we go. There we go. Okay. So the next thing I want to do, take my big fan brush, and I'm going to put in grass. I'm just tapping with the big one, right at the base of where I move those reeds up. Now you notice how beautiful this yellow is showing up and making it into a lighter green with that real dark base that I had. Now, the more you do it, the more you tap it, the more that bright yellow goes away. And now it's good. So, here's another thing. See how I left a lot of dark areas with a lot of light areas? Yes, I do. Just as I was going to explain it to you. There we go. Again, you want to keep as many lights and darks as you want. There's a nice, real good variety in there, so that's what I want to do. Okay, now for this next thing, I'll wash this brush too now. The next one's a little more difficult. It's probably an intermediate lesson. So depending on where you're at in your oil painting career, this is going to come really easy for you, or it's going to come a little more difficult. But I really enjoy doing this. I'm going to move this out of the way. You're not going to really need to see anything on the palette, because I got to get over there a little bit more. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is put flowers in. I'm not going to go absolute crazy with them, but I am going to use a palette knife for the flowers. You can use a 2-inch brush, fan brush, any kind of brush you want, filbert, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you can put flowers in and they're beautiful. For some reason, I really like that. Really, when you use a brush, they look a lot more precise. You know, if you use, let's say, the edge, you know, the corner of my 1-inch brush here, they're all going to have a very similar size and shape to them. With the palette knife, it's going to be all over the place. I'll show you what I mean, because I'm going to mix my alizarin crimson and my lemon yellow and my white, and I'm just kind of tapping color. Thick here, dark, light here, wherever. See how I'm doing that? You just random. And obviously, because I'm getting a lot of orange, I'm mixing the two. Now it's a little bit more red. I really like this look. A little bit of white with it now. Okay, now, one other thing. I got some beautiful color there. However, one of the things I'm a very big proponent of is wherever you put in one area of color, you put it in somewhere else. And that's just to unify it. Now granted, we don't have a lot of two colors anyway. We're working, like I said, 5 plus white. But I got a lot of reds and oranges here and nowhere else. So I'm not gonna put them as heavily here, but I'm gonna put a little bit here, a little bit here, maybe a little bit, just dabs, just to kind of unify the color. Okay, so put a little bit up here. Okay, a little bit over here. Okay, a little bit over here. Now, one of the beauties about a palette knife is you do a mess like that. You can usually make do. Now, I know you're probably saying you've seen people that use a palette knife that don't tap it, they just, you're absolutely correct. I like the effect. To me, it's a lot more like actual brush. What's nice too is you just wipe it off with a paper towel. You don't even have to clean the brush. Palette knife's clean real easy. I have done a couple of paintings, palette knife only, but I prefer the brush for a lot of it. Okay, now, 2 more areas I want to get, and then we're pretty much done. And this is going to be with the knife and vertical. I want to get up here and over here established as the boundaries of the falls. And I just made a mess in my water, which happens with a knife on a regular basis. I already cleaned my little fan brush, so now I'm just going to gently let it flow. Gets into the water, doesn't matter. It's got stuff all over the place. Okay, this is done. And if you notice, what was my dilemma early in this painting? Whether or not to highlight these trees. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, looks like 7 different values of green. I'm leaving that alone. If I hit yellow on that, I'd mess that whole feel to it. So I saw that, I loved it, leaving it alone. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Like I said, please let me know in the comments below if you like this. If you want to see something else, something different, if you want me to go kill myself or keep videos coming. So I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.